I'm Phil. Really nice to meet you. I work for Suzy. Suzy's a end-to-end market research company. We are combining quant, qual, all powered by AI in order to deliver high-quality audiences and ask the questions that help you really make sure that the consumer is at the center of everything that you do. And today we're going to talk about the rise of anti-perfection culture. You can click to the next slide. I don't have a clicker, so you're going to hear me say next slide a lot. I hope you guys can just cheer every time you hear next slide. That might be great. Woo! All right, so let's introduce this. So anti-perfection culture, this is something that, like most trends, has been bubbling up for a while. So I like to really think about the idea of anti-perfection as like the end of the millennial era and the rise of the Gen Z era. So sorry, millennials. You're dead. We're all talking about Gen Z, but unless you're in STEM, female STEM, because we're still really excited about you being over 49 there. But essentially what this is like the millennial aesthetic of like the mid-2000s of everything being super curated, super filtered videos, things like that. People aren't really all that interested in that anymore. They're really interested in a true, more authentic self. And I think that you guys, as brands, are probably seeing this. I'm seeing this a lot in the type of content that I consume, the type of creators that you all are hiring. Those are very authentic to your brand. They're authentic to themselves. And then, therefore, they're connecting with your consumer base as humans and not just as buyers of your product. So this really sort of shift happened and started in 2020 with the rise of TikTok. So TikTok is revolutionary, as I'm sure that we've all seen, but it really allows people to be super real and connect with consumers who feel super real. So we've had that shift from polished to authentic content, all in the same time that this rise of TikTok has happened. So next slide. Thank you. So I already sort of talked about this a little bit, but our first trend is really the decline of the Instagram aesthetic. So we talked through like that polished sort of millennial gray aesthetic that my entire house is dunzo. The word dunzo is also probably dunzo. So the curated perfection is really fading here. The meticulously staged, filtered, standing on a chair to take photos of the food in your restaurant, like all that stuff is done. And we're really excited. Sorry, you were just standing on it. It's great. You're doing a great job. And this is really like moving towards genuine portrayals. So people are really looking for that humanity again in the type of content that they're consuming. Next slide. You guys are getting pretty good. So I read this really interesting article in Eater a few weeks ago about LOL food. And I think that this really sort of conveys a lot of the ideas of this shift. So the idea of LOL food is essentially that bars and restaurants and things like that are creating this like comfort food with a lot of nostalgia, like pizza rolls or like Kraft-like mac and cheese. And this really has a divergent sort of impact. So one, it's really giving us like something that we all really crave right now in the world, which is just pure joy. But it's also moving away from that standing on your chair, getting that curated photo of the SpaghettiOs that you're having in a bar in Brooklyn, for instance. So I really like the tagline here on this article that when the world burns, the beautiful eat pizza rolls. So I'm going to get that tattooed on my heart. I feel like that I've been living by that for a long time. And if there's anybody from Totino's here in the audience, like there's your tagline. You got it. Next slide. The other trend that we're really seeing that is coming off of this is the rise of underconsumption core. Has anybody heard of underconsumption core? Thank you. So this is really a new consumer mindset that is prioritizing really mindful purchasing versus over excessive consumption. So I'm seeing this in my like sphere of influence with this no buy 2025 trend. So essentially no buy 2025 is taking this intentional purchasing throughout the entire year. So it usually starts in January with things like groceries. So you're cleaning out your freezer, you're cleaning out your pantry, you're not going and buying things just because they're on sale or just because you might see something at the store that you want. You're intentionally eating the things that you've already purchased and only going and buying like fresh produce and things like that. And then it kind of continues throughout the calendar year. February could be canceling some of your streaming services. Sorry, anybody from Peacock or Paramount Plus or anything like that in the room. But canceling some of your streaming services in February. Maybe in the summer, you're canceling your gym membership in lieu of doing some outside workouts, things like that. And this is all like sort of coalescing with this idea of de-influencing. So if you search de-influencing in TikTok, you'll see a bunch of people coming up trying to convince you to not buy this product or that product. But the thing is that the thing is that they're still trying to sell you something. Even if they're de-influencing you, they want you to buy something. It's just not the trendy product that they want. So I think this is going to be really interesting to watch in 2025 as economic uncertainty sort of rolls its way through. We know that people during uncertain economic times, they don't necessarily make big purchases, but they will buy a lot of like smaller, affordable luxuries for a little bit of a dopamine rush. And brands can really get into this aesthetic and kind of lead this underconsumption trend in a similar way to like Patagonia did with their Don't Buy This Jacket campaign. Does anybody remember this? I'm sure you're familiar with it. This is not new. This is from 2011. But essentially what they were doing was they were trying to convince people, don't come here and buy a new jacket if you have one that's perfectly good already. And if your zipper's busted or your lining is torn, we have a repair service that you can go ahead and do. So they were really trying to make sure that they were emphasizing the idea of not purchasing things just for the sake of purchasing them. So I think that this is really interesting, the timing of this too, and how it correlates to what we're seeing now. So this was in 2011 when we were all like right in the midst of the 2009 financial recession, you know, kind of coming out of that and trying to figure out what was what. So there was a time of economic uncertainty then as well. And now what we're seeing is that consumer debt is higher than it's ever been, and consumer savings is lower than it's ever been. So consumers are really not feeling great about the economy right now. And so it'll be really interesting to see the brands that will make sure that they are connecting like real core value to their consumers and making sure that the things that they're selling are the things that they actually need. Next slide. And so this all comes down to this idea of like a new minimalism. So the minimalism that we probably all remember is from 2019 when Marie Kondo was convincing us to throw away absolutely everything we have in our homes because it didn't bring us immediate joy. It's not really like that anymore. That was a little bit stressful. I'm sure you maybe missed some of the things that you gave away or that you threw away during that time, all your family heirlooms, your grandmother's china, all of that sort of stuff. So the idea here is that minimalism doesn't necessarily need to be perfectionism anymore. So it's all about sort of creating this balance, and brands can really help consumers justify that this balance is okay, and being a little bit messy is okay. Like, trust me, I'm a little bit messy. I see you, you're a little bit messy. We're all a little bit messy, and that's okay. Next slide. Speaking of imperfection, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, fashion. So we are, if any fashion experts are here in the room, you know that we're kind of at the tail end of this like quiet luxury trend. And what's replacing it is something that's like completely different. It's called sexy grotesque. Has anybody seen the movie The Substance with Demi Moore? A couple people. I watched like half of it because the other half of me was like turned away. It was a little intense. It has some interesting messages about body image and those sorts of things as women, or for women, particularly as they age. But it was also like sort of sexy, like, and it was intentionally sexy. It was like sexy grotesque. So this notion of moving from like this quiet luxury into something that's a little bit more freaky and a little bit more sexy is also like empowering consumers to be a little bit more of who they are. And they're really trying to like break out of the box or break out of the Botox. Who got their Botox redone before they came to Brand Innovators? Oh, I almost caught you. Yeah, that's okay. We can still totally tell who you are. No big deal. But I ran across this article that I thought was really interesting, which was talking about anti-Botox makeup. So essentially, putting on makeup in a way that actually accentuates the lines and wrinkles of your face in order to like show that you are your true, authentic self. Thought it was really interesting. And the bottom line here is that consumers and people are wanting brands to let them be who they are, let them show up who they are as they are. Next slide. Another little micro trend here happening is neo-medievalism. So I like to kind of think about this like the Chapel Roan trend. I was going to dress like Chapel Roan today, but I was advised against that. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. But basically what this is like it on its nose, it feels like another fashion trend, but it's actually really infiltrating a lot of different types of industries. So if you think about video games and books and movies and even like housewares and things like that, ultimately, with the rise of our lives being so digital, there's sort of a hearkening back. There's always like this barbell effect of, if things get super, super digital, then there's always a need to have something that's a little bit more analog. So people are looking for things that are a rejection of like digital perfection and embracing like some of these historic elements. So this is happening, like I said, they don't necessarily want these hyper curated social feeds, but they also don't want like a hyper curated fashion or homeware. Next slide. What was that? 2 minutes. I can do this, you guys. 2 minutes. So here we are. The impact of marketing. What does this mean for you? Essentially, this is making sure that you are staying relevant, staying real, being super transparent, and also just being a little bit messy. I think like we can give permission for our brands, particularly in the way that we communicate with our real human users, to be a little bit messy. So shifting into a little bit more of an authentic marketing that's got really relatable content. And one of the best examples of this, I think, is Duolingo. So I've been thinking about Duolingo when we were talking about this topic for this event. And then they went a few weeks ago and killed off the Duolingo owl in that really viral campaign. So we saw celebrities and creators and brands and everybody sort of coming in to mourn the Duolingo owl. And then, thank God, he has been resurrected, through the power of the Duolingo users completing their lessons, things like that. But the thing that I love about this brand is that whether you like it or whether you hate it, it's a little chaotic, it's super messy, but it's connecting with the Duolingo users, and they love it. And we were able to get a ton of impressions through that viral campaign with a lot of other creators and celebrities. So, next slide. So projections for the future. So essentially, authenticity is going to continue to be a key driver here in 2025, and I'm really interested to see how this grows and evolves. And this is influencing all industries. So I know we talked a lot about fashion and beauty, but if I didn't talk about your industry, like this is still definitely happening here within your brands. For instance, in like 30 minutes, I'm going to be back up here interviewing the team behind the Brilliantly Boring campaign from PNC, which did a really great job last year of nailing authenticity in a super creative way. So shout out to Jen and Bree. Stick around for that. And then the future of branding is just real. It's messy, and more importantly, it's inherently human. So next slide. Last slide. So in conclusion, perfection is out, authenticity is in. Consumers really want to connect with real brands, not just some sort of figment of a curated, filtered brand. So if you embrace authenticity to connect meaningfully, your consumers will follow. So that's all I got. Thank you very much.